Hey, welcome to Built to Thrive, a show where we are talking about construction in the trades and how it intersects with health and wellness. I'm your host, Lisa Myers with Cultivating Wellness. I'm an Ayurveda health counselor and I'm also in the construction world, and I've been in the solar industry for about 10 years now. So today we're going to talk with Maddie Newton. Maddie's been in the solar industry for 10 years, working her way up from administrative roles to director of project management for a utility scale EPC. And in the solar world, the EPC is really who you want to work for, and you're with a pretty well-known company. So Maddie and I met when I was working for a subcontractor building solar farms in upstate New York and in Maine.
Mm,
Maddie, thank you for joining me
yes.
today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Maddie, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background in solar?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, I've been in solar for 10 years I started out at the NC Clean Energy Technology Center at NC State, which really was the kind of launch pad for getting me into solar. I knew I was interested in renewable energy and really anything to make the world a better place in terms of green, eco-friendly concepts. So this was an internship opportunity that turned into a job for a little bit, and it exposed me to Strata. We were doing contract work for them. And then ultimately I got hired at Cypress Creek, which was a great opportunity. Met a lot of people, and those people are the ones that started this company, Mill Creek Renewables. And it's given me a lot of opportunity to grow professionally, get a lot of different experience. And it's here that I really made the biggest leaps and bounds from project manager up to uh, senior project manager, associate director, and now director. So it has been quite the journey.
So you started out at NC State. What did you study at NC State?
I studied sustainable materials and technology, which was actually kind of the wood products major that they were switching over to sustainable materials. So it was pretty heavily in wood products, natural materials. But because of that, I got a pretty strong engineering background, and I had actually started out in engineering at State. That's given me a great basis for kind of understanding what I'm looking at with these construction plans. But didn't you studied something similar right at App State? What was it? Environmental technologies?
Yeah, I didn't realize that we studied such similar stuff.
I
I
know.
studied now it's called sustainability technologies, but at the time it was called appropriate technology.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think we both graduated in 2015, didn't we?
I was 16.
2016.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's we probably studied similar things. Maybe yours was less wood though.
Yeah, it was more, it starts out with like, you get interested in it and it seems like sustainable development. It seems like it's a lot of just farming and stuff. And I was kind of like, well, I don't know about this. I want to learn more about the technology side. So sustainability tech is kind of like a cross between sustainable development and construction management. It's kind of cool.
That is cool. Probably much more applicable.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so you were working for Cypress Creek probably around the same time that I was working for Entropy before Entropy went under.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was for me. So I was at the Clean Tech Center during college and then after college for a bit. In 2017, I started at Cypress Creek.
So what was that like? Like, how did you start there? What was your role?
So I found that I had to apply for a bunch of admin roles. Like, I don't know if it was, I mean, I'm new to the industry. My major is not one that's very commonly, no one knows what that is. So I was applying to admin roles at different research, like bio research, biotech, environmental, regulatory, all over the place, just trying to get somewhere in like a field I was interested in, get my foot in the door in an admin role. It was hard too, but I eventually I had applied for Cypress Creek, I think December of 2016. they didn't get back to me until like almost May. I think I was the second round of like applicants they had looked at. But I was hired as the EPC administrator. So we were kind of the bridge between the field and the office people and making sure all the systems were running properly and making sure everything was being tracked well and just kind of, making sure everything was moving forward and was more seamless for the project management team.
So you kind of started, made your connections at Strata and then you went to Cypress. Was your perspective on the solar industry like a lot different before and after you worked, like before you got in? Because I didn't realize that if you wanted to work in solar or renewables in North Carolina, you pretty much have to work for a construction company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, these are my options, I guess.
I didn't know what to think, to be honest. I never, like when I was in college, project management, construction management, quality, all of these positions and roles that are every day to us now, I had no idea something like that even existed. I didn't really put much thought into what the job would actually be beforehand. Just was like, oh, cool, I'm going to work for a solar company and we're going to do good things and, I'll figure my way out there. I had no idea, but definitely a big change before to after. Yeah, I mean, after Cypress, that was a great exposure because it was such a big company doing so much so quickly. So there was a lot, I got to see a lot of different sides to the business and kind of get a better feel for what was really out there. There's a lot out there in the construction realm, as you mentioned, for us in construction.
What was your day-to-day experience like, let's just say at Cypress? And how long did you work at Cypress?
Time is like a vortex that's hard to remember. Time, it was around 2 years, like maybe 2.5. And then that was the end came when we got a new C-suite that wanted to put the kibosh on the EPC group. So that all of that fun came to an end. But day to day at Cypress I mean, in our role, we were working with everybody. So I was working with the ON group. I managed the fleet of trucks. So I was always talking to the construction managers, the site supers, the quality guys, commissioning guys, because they all had trucks. So they would call me about their flat tire or whatever it would be. So it was kind of fun though, because now I still run into those guys like everywhere. It's just fun that I got to meet everybody in the field while I was in such an office-y position. But yeah, so it was just a little bit of everything in the beginning, which was great for me. I think they thought I would be maybe just an EPC, like just an admin for Procore and some more smaller things. But I think they hit a point where they didn't know what to do with me, so they just gave me a lot of different things to do. So yeah, it was good exposure.
Did you like it the whole time, or were you kind of like, did you ever think about leaving, I guess?
No, I am always the last one to like realize I should leave a place. So I'm pretty, I don't know, rose-colored glasses, but I do really, I loved everybody I worked with there, and now I'm working with a lot of them again, so it's fun, but I don't think I would have ever left, which wouldn't have worked out for me, to be honest. I needed to leave to get to where I am now, but I don't think I would have without like them ending the EPC division. So that was the push.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where did you visualize yourself going in the industry? Like, did you ever imagine you'd be in a director position?
No. I actually, after Cypress, I went to Ecoplexus and became a project manager there. One of my friends, he was in the development group at Cypress Creek, and he went and he was a project manager, and I was like, I mean, he was in dev and he's a PM now for construction, so I feel like maybe I could take a stab at this. So I went over there. That was a very interesting experience. They didn't have nearly as much support as Cypress Creek had for their PMs, but I learned a lot. And my boss over at Ecoplexus, Roger Bailey, he was like, I think I could see you as a director one day. And I was like, no, there's no way. I can't handle that kind of pressure like that. I was like, I don't know if I'm even gonna stay in project management. Like, it's all but much. And I thought I was gonna pivot to more of like a business sustainability role, like efficiencies, business process kind of role. And that was when I got offered the job at Mill Creek and took that and worked my way up. But no, I never saw myself as a director. Even when other people did, I never saw it for myself.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. I like kind of similarly, but just in the wellness world. When I left Entropy, I had some time off, obviously.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do like a big holistic cleanse, and I reached out to a practitioner that I was interested in, and I had like my initial consultation with her, and I was just asking her like, how did you become an Ayurvedic practitioner, blah blah blah, and she was like, she told me her story, and then she was like, why are you thinking about doing it? And I was like, I hadn't even thought about it. And I was like, I don't know. She was like, you seem like you would be really good at it. And then I was like,
Light bulb.
yeah, it was pretty cool. That's cool to hear that somebody saw it in you before you saw it in yourself.
Yeah. What were you doing at Entropy?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was not a great employee when I got started. I was such a pain in the butt, I'm sure. So I started out to be on the commissioning team, and just the full-time travel it was too intense for me. And I was kind of like, God, these like all my coworkers, they're drinking a lot and like everyone's kind of mean. Why did I choose this? But after a couple of months, I talked with my boss and he was like, well, you can come back to the office if you want and we'll find something to do with you. And that's when I kind of moved towards logistics. And the whole company went out to that 46 project in Fayetteville.
Hmm.
And we were all just kind of parked there for like 6 months. And the day I got there, they handed me like a stack of paperwork and they were like, hey, all this needs to be received into the system. And by the way, you're in charge of like these 3 areas on site now. And so I had been like struggling to find my purpose at the company. But, I was given something to like own. I ran with it and I thrived in it. So yeah, I guess
Wow.
that's what I did at Entropy.
Wow. Yeah, that project is infamous.
Yeah, it's well known.
It is well known.
And even now, like that topic, that project will come up in conversation, and you'll realize that you were working on. I've met people and realized that we were both working at IS 46 at the same time.
Really. And just never met on site.
Yeah, solar's kind of a small world, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Makes
Yeah.
it fun.
Yeah, I think it is
Yeah.
cool. So another question I had is, as a woman moving from more like administrative roles into a leadership role, especially project management, I feel like in particular, project management and construction, did you ever have any challenges making that transition and I guess being, I don't want to say taken seriously, but I don't know another way to say it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think that was probably part of why I never saw it for myself because I have still not met a woman director of project management for an EPC. Like I'm trying to think. I don't think I have. I've met other women in leadership positions, and they are like my source of inspiration. No woman like specifically in this role, so that made it tough to kind of see what that would look for. But coming into this role, I've been really lucky because I've been with Mill Creek since the beginning. I was actually just talking with Roberto about this last night because we met up at 690 Society. He was the first full-time hire and I was the second because Peter himself wasn't even working full-time here when we started full-time. So it was just from the very beginning. I didn't have a big problem with respect because I think I've been here so long that the people I'm surrounded by do respect me already. I haven't had to deal with any issues like that, and I'm sure it'll come, but so far, no. And I'm really grateful for that because it's given me a chance to really grow confident in myself and in my position. And I think if anybody did second guess me or or disrespect me, I now have the tools to defend myself and not let it like bother me. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. I'm glad to hear you've had a positive experience.
I know. I feel lucky, which is sad to say because I know a lot of women don't have that same experience, but thankfully for me it's been a good network here. So, it's
Yeah.
been great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's see. How long, I guess, have you been and before we got on the podcast, I know when we were talking about doing this, you talked a little bit about making the transition from being in more of an admin role into leading people.
hmm
So, I guess what has that been like for you?
It's been um an very unique experience learning how to manage people because projects have their, and even on the admin side, what I was working on was projects, it wasn't people. I was dealing with people, but my actual work I was doing, it was like there was a product at the end and that was it. And project management, you have your project, you have like people that you're working with, but in the end, like it's just a project. It's not people that you're necessarily managing. Managing people is super different because everyone's got a different personality. Everyone has a different way they like to be managed, and they don't train you on that.
Yeah.
You just get promoted and they're like, okay, you're managing these people now. It's like, I've never done that before. And it's interesting talking with some of my friends who are in people management positions. They have the same feeling. It's like we've just kind of been thrown into this role with no training. Like all we can do is draw on our experiences from our managers, which most of my managers have always been men. So it's like a totally different management style. Yeah. So that's learning how to manage people has been very challenging, but I have a few like book recommendations. I actually haven't even read these yet, but people have told me um, to be a good manager. There's a couple of books out there. Let's see if I can find them. One of them is Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I need to read. And then 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey.
I've read
So,
that
have you
one.
read that one?
Yeah.
How was it?
I remember it being very good, and I recommended it to other people.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
I
need
think,
to.
and it's a short read, like it's pretty easy. I remember the main thing that I took away from that book was like, how many meetings have you been to where people completely get off track and then you end up with like more confusion than you have answers? The main thing from that book is like, make sure that every conversation you walk away from, like, if you can delegate something, you have delegated it by the end of that
Yeah.
conversation and you've set like a clear deadline. It's a good book.
Hmm. I will have to read that. It's on my list. I want to read these books to try to get a little bit of like training on how to manage people instead of just winging it. Yeah. But there's more work I could do there. It's just finding the time too, because like it is so busy during the day and then you get off work and you don't really want to read like a book about how to be better at your job.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, but it's on my list. It's just I think maybe reading those would at least give me a little more confidence with, how I choose to manage people. So,
Duke fan, but that book, Leading with the Heart, about Coach K, was actually really good too.
I'll have to write that one too.
Have you
Leading with the
watched The
heart.
Bear on FX about it's like a fine dining restaurant or they're turning it into a fine dining restaurant?
I want to watch that, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's really, really good.
Okay.
But I think in the second season, the sous chef, she gets like super into that book and she's like applying it.
That's funny. No, anything to help. But yeah, I feel like everyone must feel that way when they get like thrust into these people management roles and they don't know never managed people before, don't get any guidelines on like what to do. We get into review time and it's like, I don't know how to review stuff. But I'm
I
gonna
think
try.
especially in our industry too, it's kind of like you said, just hey, you're in charge of this now and you're in charge of all these people.
Yeah, yeah. So it's sink or swim.
Have
Sink
there
or
been
swim.
any any realizations or like skills that you've had to develop kind of when you're like, oh, hey, this is what I have to do now? What are all the
Mhm.
things that are going to come with that?
I have had to back off severely because I am such a type A person, and like I'm watching these things happen, and like I know I can jump in and handle it, but I can't. Like that's just, they're kind of finding that line of when to step in has been, it changes, and I kind of just do it based on a feeling. I'm like, all right, I think it's time. But and sometimes I feel bad about it after. I'm like, I should have left that. I let my anxiety get the best of me. But yeah, taking a step back has been the biggest thing I've had to realize with this role, and not get into the nitty-gritty, not like let everyone do their job, and then, my job is, if it's not going well, that's when I step in. So that's been hard for me to do. And delegating, you mentioned like delegating in these calls. I hate delegating. I like just doing it. So that's been a task in itself, is like forcing myself to delegate things to people, not letting myself get bogged down with little tasks, even though I love little tasks.
Yeah, I was talking with an employee recently, and he was kind of talking about people getting passed up for promotions, or it might like appear that they're getting passed up for a promotion. And I was like, I mean, the thing is, you can have the best skills in the world for this one role, but then the next role in the trajectory needs a different skill set. And if you don't
Mhm.
have a good manager, then nobody's gonna just say to you straight up, hey, this is a different skill set, and this is like, number one, where do you want to go? And number two, like, okay, let's start building you the skills to get you there. And that takes a lot of attention, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You have to do the job before you actually have the job. So it's like showing that you can do it, building up those skills before you even, yeah, have the role. It's a little backwards, but it's the name of
Yeah.
the game.
We talked about stress and anxiety a little bit in the past, just talking. And the other thing is, like, we always hear about people's professional development, but especially in construction and in solar, generally, like when I dig into it with people, there's this parallel journey along their professional development that's like, I had to learn to manage my health, my stress, while learning new skills in my career. So, have you
Mhm.
had an experience with that?
Yeah, I still haven't figured it out entirely, but I'm still working to get there. I definitely like being a project manager. When it was early on at Mill Creek, I was managing, I mean, there was points in time where I was managing like 12 to 13 projects that were like actively happening. And so your brain's just like being pulled in 13 different unique directions. And it's yeah, you get to the end of the day, and like the fatigue, like your brain just feels like cloudy, you're fatigued. I go to bed and it's like 2 a.m. I wake up and I'm like, I forgot to send that email to someone, like little things just all night. So it was like impacting my sleep. Mentally after work, I was so drained. I felt like I couldn't do anything, and it made me feel my body felt so tired that I didn't want to do anything physically active either. So it was this like negative feedback loop of just, yeah, spiraling in stress. And sometimes I didn't even realize I was stressed, but I started picking up on my cues, um, because it's not always like a mental thing where you're like, oh, I feel so stressed out. Like it's not always that feeling. It's sometimes, different types of stress on your body that can be harder to pick up on. So I think for me, my journey has been identifying when I am stressed out, because and what my cues are. Um, that's half the battle, but to try to keep myself from going over the edge of being so stressed out that I can't sleep, I can't like participate in activities after work because I'm just so mentally drained. Yeah, I've worked on a few things. It's mostly involved, some of it's physical, like yoga, or I know some people do like massage therapy, going to get massages to help just like release the tension. I've done that a couple of times, which has helped. And then on the boundaries side, I've usually been pretty good at boundaries, but not having notifications on my phone after work. So at 5 o'clock, all notifications are off. I've forced myself to take a break because there's days I don't even need to work through lunch, and I would work through lunch because I was just so like keyed up. Like I was like, I need to do something, but I forced myself to take a break. When you like walk outside and like just step away, it really puts things into perspective. It's like, why am I freaking out about this little thing? Like it's gonna be okay. So yeah, it's been a journey. What do you do? Do you do anything to help them with your stress load?
Yeah. Well, I think what I try to do is I also keep the notifications off. If I can help it, I'll keep Teams on, but I will turn off email notifications on my phone like all the time. So I do that, and like I'll put my phone on airplane mode when if I have to, which is kind of like risky, I know, but as long as
Yeah.
I turn it on like an hour later or whatever, I'm good. But another thing that I did, and this is when my career really started to grow, is I always used to think of work as like something to escape from. And when I started thinking of it as like just part of my life, it somehow became less stressful. Like I'm on PTO right now, and I've picked up a few phone calls today, and I don't think of it as like a negative thing. But there are times where I just have to go and take a walk, or I have to actively shift. Like, I'll have to notice that I'm thinking negative thoughts about something or somebody that I'm working with or whatever, and I have to actively work to shift it and just kind of rewrite that story. And if I make the story less stressful, then I feel less stressed, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the changing your frame of thought on it. That's pretty cool. That takes some work. I don't think I have gotten there yet. If it's stressing me out, I kind of let it stress me out, which is that's the next step I need to figure out. Yeah, those are good tips. And I think it's different for everybody what works and doesn't work. I mean, some people, the notifications, I don't know how, but it doesn't seem to bother them. But
I
for
have
me,
one coworker. She lives like more on the West Coast, and she was handling like different rentals and stuff for guys on site. This was at another company I worked at. And she was telling me that she would get woken up out of bed at 4:45 a.m. and be answering phone calls of like where equipment is and like what the status on things was. And I was like, you've got to put that phone on airplane mode until 5 a.m. Like just give yourself 15 minutes
yep.
of like boundary time to get yourself, take a couple of minutes for yourself first and then prepare yourself to dive into it. Because there's nothing worse than getting that phone call that completely throws you off guard. You'll
Mhm.
see the phone call coming in and you see who's calling you, and you're like, okay, I know what this is going to be about. But you're not prepared.
Yeah.
Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it helps to just like wait and then call back when you're like mentally ready.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need to immediately be attentive and responding to people. Sometimes you do need to, but sometimes you can like let that wait until 9 a.m. when you've dealt with all the other fire drills of the morning.
That's something I wanted to ask you about too, because I feel like we're kind of similar in, I guess, like our detail oriented
Hmm.
ways. Like even those projects that we did for you when I was working for another company, I would get so stressed out about every single detail and be like, it has to be perfect.
It was
I don't
always perfect. Your trackers were always perfect.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel good. Well, that's something that I've realized is like I don't know if it is a thing about being a woman in the industry or if it's just the industry being chaotic. But have you noticed this where you'll be very, very attentive to detail and like this has to be just right. And then, the guys in the field will just be like, "Oh yeah, whatever, like 75% was good enough."
Mhm.
And it's like, man, I stressed out so much about this. And in a way, it's good because I was more prepared. But on the other hand, I was like, man, like nobody else, I don't, do you know what I'm trying to say? I guess.
Yeah, it's like no. sometimes the people don't even care about like all the detailed attentiveness. It's like the fudget is like acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel myself becoming more fudget. Like, it's happening because I don't know. I think that mentality, I mean, there are things that I'm very particular about, and I would prefer to do it the right way always and like have it be 100% accurate. And I will definitely waste time doing that myself if I have to. But sometimes I've had to accept that sometimes I just don't have the time, and I know that people aren't going to appreciate it anyways. So I'm like, whatever, 85%. And that's just it. It is what it is. It's the gut feeling. So yeah, but no, I do get that. And I think it may be like a woman thing, just the more attention and appreciation for the details. Like your trackers, I was like so impressed. I was like, oh my gosh, even like I think you even had the array like in there and you color coded like what was done. There was all kinds of stuff in there. There was that, there was your like down to the smallest component, what was on the bill of material, what was delivered with little percentages. Yeah, I appreciated what you did.
Thank you. I as far as like the colored maps, I don't think from what I remember, I can't take credit for that, but a lot of the other details, um, I still push that with the teams that I'm working with now is like, and another thing is like if you do take the time to be detail oriented, it kind of can save you some stress later because
Mhm.
you know that you can find information, or it'll be like, hey, this team is usually really intentional with their work. We're just going to try, if something's wrong, we're just going to trust them that
Yeah.
we,
It does, yeah, it does look really good. And especially logistics, like that's something I wouldn't fudge it, you know? Like
yeah,
that is it's such a pain when something's not right. Like, I mean, I'm mostly on these DG projects and it's a pain there, but it happens on these utility scale jobs, transmission, and it's like millions of dollars.
yeah,
If you mess something up, if you don't let the vendor know, or if you sign off on a BOO when you shouldn't have, or whatever it may be, yeah, it can be a nightmare. So I definitely agree. Tracking has its advantages and can save a lot of headaches down the road, but yeah, maybe doesn't always get the appreciation it deserves.
yeah. But when you were talking about stress, were there any times in your career where, well, I guess first of all, when you were more in admin roles, did you feel like you still got stressed and like did it change as you went through different roles?
I was very stressed in my admin roles, but that was probably more due to the fact that I was like younger and wanted to prove myself, wanted everything to be perfect. I probably wasn't like up at nights about my tasks at hand like I was when I was a project manager, but I mean, I did put a lot of pressure on myself. Back to women in the industry, there's these guys getting hired out of college to be assistant project managers. I don't know what they studied. I don't know how they landed that, but I was a woman like who probably had a very similar educational background to these guys. There's no way I would have ever gotten an assistant project manager job. So I felt this extra pressure to like myself that I can do it. And I have seriously thought like for a while that I would never be a good assistant PM even. So um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I was proving it to myself or proving it to who I was working for, but definitely stressed myself out over that.
I guess like because I know you at first you were like associate director of project management and now you're director.
Yes.
Were you kind of like expecting it to go along, or was that kind of similar where someone was like, hey, we need this, and I feel like you're the person for it?
In terms of the associate position or like
I guess that's where you are now.
so that they did kind of create the role. We kind of broke, I mean, we had a director of project management who's still here, Dino, but it was just too much of a load. So they knew they wanted more directors. And I think they put me into associate originally. It was basically the exact same. I mean, I was doing the director job and I wasn't in that position for very long before they bumped me up. But I mean, they it was just a growth of the company type of thing, and they wanted to hire from within. Me and Colby we were kicking butt at being project managers, so they thought that we would be good candidates to try to do the director thing and hopefully, influence our project manager style on some of the other PMs that would report to us. So that's kind of how that happened. So me and Colby, we moved up pretty much at the same time and split the projects with Dino, and yeah, it's been great ever since. Been a good little community of project directors.
Did you feel like there were ever any kind of like red flags for your health where it was kind of like stress or anxiety or anything that was taken to a new level and you were like, I'm going to have to, I mean, maybe this is a little too personal. You can keep it as general as you want, but was there anything where you were like, I've got to get a handle on this or
Yeah, I like one instance that's coming to mind, which really just goes to show how stressed I let myself get at Cypress Creek. There was one day I had to leave early. It was like early afternoon, but it was just, I think I was having a panic attack. And I haven't really had a lot of those, but I've had two, and they've both been when I've been like extremely stressed out. And so I think that was like, I was like, because when you're having, I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack, but you kind of feel like you're dying. So, which doesn't help with the panic that's feeding the attack. So it's kind of it's a scary situation. And I think that definitely pushed me. I mean, that was pretty early on, but there's kind of things that lead up to it. Like you get heart palpitations, you have like these really apparent physical stress signals. I guess those red flags that like when that starts, and I've seen that almost start here a couple of times. I'm like, I need to take a step back and calm down because I cannot let this spiral out of control. So I think, yeah. Have you ever had anything like that, like a panic attack or anxiety attack?
sure I've had anxiety attacks. I'm not sure if I've had a panic attack from the way people describe it, but I think at entropy, I think I was starting to like grind my teeth or I would clench my jaw a lot.
Oh,
So I
yes.
would wake up and I would be like, why is my jaw clenched?
Oh no.
I don't know if I've ever really had the attacks, but I think I used to have a lot of ruminating thoughts and maybe like a feeling of panic to a lesser extent. But
Hmm.
I don't think I've ever quite felt like I was dying. But a lot of people tell me that that's how it feels.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, which yeah, doesn't help when you're already panicking and then you think you're
Yeah.
dying and it's like, oh God. Yeah, it's hard to get out of that little loop. But yeah, no, I mean, hopefully it never gets to that level for anybody, but hopefully for you, like once you see some of the signs and can try to like get it under control. I think that's why it's so important to understand your little stress indicators and force yourself to do something about it. I mean, it takes work. It's not easy. It's like meditation. It takes work to meditate, even though it's like one of the calmest things. You wouldn't think it takes work. I'm not good at meditating, but
Do you feel like there are any habits that you picked up though to deal, or I guess not deal with, but to make sure that things don't get to that point?
yeah, I think the yoga, I mentioned that. I even just like a short sun salutation in the morning, literally, I don't know why, but it is really energizing. And maybe it's not even just that, but maybe it's like you were mentioning with your friends, like having that time where you're not looking at your phone, you're not answering calls. It's like just your time to kind of like get yourself set up for the day
Yeah.
mentally and you know, just get the blood flowing. Really, I think that helps too. But I would see a noticeable difference on days where I don't do that versus days I do. Like when I don't do it, I come home. When I used to go into the office, I would come home and I would have to take a nap like immediately. I would just like pass out on the couch because my brain was so like fogged. Days I would do it, I would come home and still be like energized and fine. I think it just was setting myself right from the beginning of the day, like just doing that to kind of get things started off on a good foot. And then I think everything else, it wasn't just that one thing, but probably impacted my stress level, impacted, other things throughout the day that made me more energized when I was done with work and not so like bogged down by the mental stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like, in particular, when I was traveling full time, and even now, like, on particularly rough days, if I'm traveling a lot, I'll notice if I don't eat something with protein, like early in the day, I will get that panicky feeling. Or if I have like too much coffee without eating protein at breakfast or lunch, I'll feel it. And then I guess it was like realizing that these small things that I do earlier in the day can stop me from like just reaching for any food that I see after 5 o'clock. And like, kind of like you said, just coming home and sleeping because my brain is so bogged down.
Yeah, you're just trying to do something to stimulate like
Yeah.
whatever it is, snacks or whatever. Yeah, that is interesting. Being on the road like that seems really hard. Like just constant road warrior, a lot of times not having a kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's difficult. I mean, that's why like I'm doing all of this is to support that because it kind of feels like you're in a hole that you can't really climb out of. And it's like I felt like I was thriving at work, but I wasn't cooking. I wasn't connecting meaningfully with people in my life.
Yeah, that's tough.
Do you feel like you kind of have to be on all the time as a director?
I guess I think when I think of on, I think of like an elementary school teacher and how they actually have to be on all day. Actually, any teacher, I think about that a lot, and I'm like, I just couldn't like be in front of a class full of kids and keep your cool, teach them stuff. Like that's a lot of pressure. So I'm not switched on to that level, and I have a lot of admiration for people that do that because it just seems incredible. But I do feel like, I mean, there's a lot of pressure of, things falling through the cracks. And it's like, there's a lot of lines of defense before it gets to me where it shouldn't. But it can't like slip through the cracks when it gets to me, if it comes to me. Like I have to be paying attention. I have to be able to answer to the clients or our executive team. So it is, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty switched on all day just to make sure I'm up to speed on everything and making sure things are moving pretty smoothly. But it is like a more 1,000-foot view, which is a little bit less pressure than the minute details that PMs are dealing with. So I try, it's hard. You can't get mad at them if something slips by because they're dealing with a million things, but I want to be that like second line of defense to catch it. So I
Yeah.
definitely have to be paying attention and making sure there's nothing like that happening. A lot of people depending on it. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any, I guess, coworkers or I guess loved ones in your life? Have they played a particular role in supporting your health and your career or your career? Either way.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you have to when you're running 1,000 miles a minute. My mom, and then there's a couple women in higher positions in my life that have been like my role models, I guess you could say. They've always been great at giving me advice on how to deal with situations, how to like. I was asking one of my role models what she did when she had kids because like how do you balance having kids but also wanting your career and to have a career. She had some good advice. She said she always had a toe in the water. So even if she couldn't work full time, she was always working part time. I thought that was interesting. It's just like my mom always, like her and my dad always owned their own businesses, made their own hours and stuff. So I never saw what it was like to be a corporate girly with kids. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was interesting. And then obviously my partner at home, he's in the project management field as well for pharmaceuticals, but yeah, he's super supportive. I've had partners in the past that haven't been because that whole optics of like, the guy wants to be the one that's the money maker and like, I don't know, more powerful, wears the pants. I don't know what it is, but
Where's
yeah,
the pants?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, and it's just not like that. And I think it's the same for a lot of my friends. I mean, it's much more healthy, dynamic, very supportive. So it's been good. What about you? What's your support system look like?
yeah, I feel like my partner's pretty supportive too. He's kind of just like he's supportive when I need it, but it's not. I feel pretty like autonomous. Like I'm free to
Hmm.
I don't want to say like I'm free to do what I want, but like I'm trying to build this business and like yeah, I definitely feel supported there. I think mainly I think about like managers that I've had or interacted with, and a lot of the time it was kind of just they weren't necessarily supporting me, but they were kind of showing me how I didn't want to be as I developed as a leader. As like
Mm.
at Centera, I had a really awesome supervisor, and she was so supportive and like just kind of being there for me because she was the first manager that I had in solar that was a woman. Now that I think about it,
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, and I think when I worked for LES, Slice was awesome at showing me. I think sometimes he was like a little bit too in the business,
Hmm.
but he was really good at being a leader who was always on, but it wasn't really stressful for him. And I think that that's when I was like, I don't have to always be trying to get away. So I think like those types of people throughout my career have been supportive and kind of shaping the type of leader I am now. And
Yeah.
I really do my best to try to guide people in a way where I'm letting them know that I want them to be healthy and autonomous and like have their own freedom and feel empowered to make decisions without me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound like a great manager.
Thanks. I mean, I try to be. That's something that I'm always focused on developing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That is, yeah, that's a good point though. The managers, I didn't even think about that. The managers in your life and pulling from the good and the bad. It's almost like with parents, you're like, I would do this with my kids, but not this. But yeah, kind of a similar concept. And it's true. I've had micromanagers, macro managers, and, just completely hands off or completely hands on and everything in between. It definitely at least helps paint the picture of how I would want to be managed. But I was actually talking with one of my coworkers. She was just promoted she's the head of our project coordinator group now. She was saying she's she's working with each of the people that report to her and working on like how they want to be managed because like we have our own ideas of how we want to be managed, but she is like actively working with them. Like, do you want to have a weekly meeting to check in? Do you not want that? Do you want me on your call? Trying to kind of feel out like what she can do to support them. And I was like, that's such a good idea. I've never asked the PMs what they want from me or what they don't want from me. I probably should though.
I feel like sometimes when you start asking questions like that, it takes people a while to be able to even answer because they've never
It's
thought
true.
about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think at Centera, my manager was really cool in like letting me make decisions, and then like, most of the time I would make decisions without consulting her, but I would kind of tread this thin line of like, hey, I'm gonna do this and I'll let you know about it first, versus like, hey, I did this and I don't know if it's gonna work out or something.
Yeah.
So it just felt good to know that like someone had my back if I made a mistake because
Yeah.
I didn't always feel that way. Yeah.
Mm.
Have you ever heard of that book, The Defining Decade?
No,
I guess it's like a little late for us because we're in our 50s, but or I don't know how old you are.
I am in my 30s, so.
It was talking about how to use your 20s and how at least millennials used to treat their 20s like an extended adolescence, kind of just
Mm.
travel and like I'm just gonna work at a restaurant, which I've done that plenty of times, right?
Hmm.
But the take home message that I really remember from that book was that until you're about 25, the more emotional part of your brain is really active. And after 25, it's kind of like your logic meter ramps up a little bit more and the
Mm-hmm.
emotions diminish a little bit. So, for instance, like things at Entropy or other solar companies I worked at right out of school, someone would look at me the wrong way and I would take it home and like stress about it all night, or someone would say something and I'm sure now that they weren't even thinking about it, but I would take it home and I would stress about it for maybe weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And now I can let things like roll off my back a lot better.
So interesting. Yeah, that explains a lot. We were just so young and impressionable and emotional.
Solar's a rough place to be trying to navigate your emotional health too.
Yeah, and you're surrounded by men who don't want to talk about emotion. Yeah, it's like great.
So, speaking of just starting out in construction, what advice would you give to, I guess, young women that are wanting, they're getting into construction and they want to grow in their career, grow into leadership?
It's a good question. Well, I think for one, even knowing what's out there, because I didn't know. I don't know if you knew really like all of the different roles
Oh,
and possibilities. You don't even know how to envision yourself because you think construction and it's like it just I don't know, I feel like there's this picture and it's probably usually like civil work, like you're probably when someone says construction you're thinking about like I don't know, an excavator on a site, like I don't
yeah.
know, there's so many things you just don't think of until you kind of understand the details. So I would say I mean, for this would be for anyone, like interning is such a big thing in college, like doing an internship and actually getting exposure to the inner workings of these companies and like what roles there really are. I think that's a big one. But as a woman, it's kind of important, even though it's hard. I think it's important to find a mentor that's a woman to like help guide you because I think that's made a huge impact on me, just being able to see women in higher positions in this industry, get tips from them, like and just bounce things off of them. I mean, any mentor would be great, but I think having a female mentor, especially for us in this industry, is so beneficial for helping to kind of move you forward. And yeah, I mean, even though neither of us saw some of this in ourselves and someone else had to see it first, I would try to tell like a younger version of me or a young woman to like not limit yourself. Like you can do it. Like if they can do it, we can do it. So don't like limit yourself into thinking that you can't do these higher roles. Work at it and lean on your support system. And
I find like just being your natural self and just being a consistent person, consistent employee, someone will see it in you pretty quickly. Like whatever that thing is, someone will see
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, it's everyone always jokes about like I don't even know if I should say this here, but like it's so hard to get fired because having a good like just being a consistent employee, like you said, like just consistency and just doing your job is sometimes really hard to find. And so it's like, yeah, if you just keep doing you and show up and do your job, like you're already leagues ahead of a lot of people.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see people get fired a lot. And it's, yeah, impressive when you do almost.
Even when I've gotten laid off from like different roles or whatever, like um if you build a good reputation for yourself, it's generally so easy to find somebody who's looking for someone,
Hmm. And
especially
it
in
is such a small
our
world.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So small. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. How did you get in where you're at now? What was the connection?
Yeah, so I'm at STG Solar. They're based out of Asheville. It was a coworker from Centera. She
Mm,
mentioned it to me, and I when she mentioned it to me last year, I was like, it sounds like a good company, but I'm not really ready to go anywhere yet. It was kind of weird. Like I woke up one day and I it was like crystal clear like, hey, it's time to go back into solar. And I started reaching out to a few different people, and that place just felt right. And I sat down with the owners, and this is the first solar company where I got to like sit down with ownership and have a conversation face to face. And I
That's pretty
felt
cool.
like, wow, I'm going to be valued here. Like people, I mean, I have felt valued everywhere else that I've worked, but there's something about being able to sit down with leadership and feel that connection in the beginning.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's been a really good experience so far.
awesome. Yeah, because there's so much uncertainty when you're going into a new or looking at a new company. And I mean, that's awesome that you felt that way like immediately. That's pretty cool.
So you were kind of talking about your younger self. In addition to career advice, would you give any advice to your younger self around taking care of your mind and body while building your career?
Oh, that's a good one. I probably could have given advice, and I don't think younger me would have listened, but I think if she would have listened to the advice, it would definitely be. I mean, I'm always so up and down with like physical activity, and I do think it helps. And even if it's not the activity itself, but like just pulling you away, like removing you from work or like school stress or whatever it may be, I feel like it just has all these other benefits. So even just going on a walk or whatever, I think I would lose sight of like making sure to prioritize physical activity, going on a walk, going outside. Even now, like after COVID, it was hard to like bring yourself to do some of that stuff. So it's still a constant battle. But yeah, I think that would have been the big one because it's such a small thing and a small part of your day that can really have a lot of positive impact. So that's probably what I would say. Although I think we're told that anyways, and I knew everyone knows that like doing physical activity is good for you, but it's always a challenge to actually like listen and do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. There's this term in Ayurveda, and it basically means it's in Sanskrit, but it basically means going against your own wisdom. So it's like when you've done the thing and you've seen the positive effects of it, and then you still choose to not do it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all prone to that in some way, shape, or form with,
Mhm.
with something in our life, but that's what makes us human, I guess.
Are there any last things, anything that we missed? I think we've talked about most of
Um, yeah, I think that was it, at least on what I had in mind.
Yeah.
It's been
Okay.
awesome talking to you about all of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Maybe as my podcast gets a little bit more, picks up some steam, we can have
Hmm.
you back on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds fun. This is awesome. You're doing good things.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. Okay. Well, I will see you guys next time on the next episode. Thanks again, Maddie.
Thank you.